Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tony the Mole Adams YouTube channel, coming to you more than once a week now because we thought we should pull our finger out.
Yeah.
We're going to draw your attention to a couple of other videos to kick off the show this week. I want to draw your attention to one, and I haven't told Tony about this, but I sat up last night doing a video about the potential takeover of Super League by the NRL, ARLC, and how the game here in the UK, I'm coming to you from London, how the game here in the UK is kind of headed for a bit of a civil war. So hopefully it works. If I point up to the corner of the screen, you can see a link. But Tony is with us now, and another video we want to draw your attention to is, I think, our most recent show, Tony. I'll point up to the screen again, which is was about DCE, about Daly Cherry-Evans, and maybe people didn't take us too seriously when we said Daly Cherry-Evans might play for someone else next year. But in the few hours before we record this, a lot's happened, Tony. Welcome.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a bizarre situation. I actually wrote it for Wide World of Sports in my column last week that DC the Roosters were showing some interest, and I expected quite a reaction, and the reaction wasn't what I expected. It was pretty much nil. But now everyone's suddenly sitting up and noticing because in the last few hours, as you say, DCE's come out and said he will not be playing for Manly next season. They were discussing it on NRL 360, and Manly rang up NRL 360 and said, we will match any 2-year offer, or words to that effect. So, bizarre situation. And as we speak, DC is on Channel 9 talking about his future, basically saying not too much other than we shall wait and see, but I won't be at Manly. So all very interesting.
Yeah, bad PR for a club to let go of a sort of a favourite son like Daly Cherry-Evans. What do you think will happen? You did say, well, you obviously said last week you thought the Roosters might make an offer. Have you got any thoughts where things might, where the cards might fall, where he might end up?
Yeah, I think I've pretty much narrowed it down to 3 clubs, being I'll stick with the Roosters. The Dragons have expressed their interest and they will have some money to spend. And Shane Flanagan obviously doesn't like Lachlan Ilias, even though he apologised to him. And the other one, which could be interesting, is the Dolphins. Of course, Cherry's a Queensland boy. I think he might even be a Redcliffe boy. So to see him go back up there would be a fairy tale way to finish his career. And I think they'll have a bit of money to spend as well.
Cool. Now, Tony, you've got another column that you do earlier in the week, and interesting lead item you got there about Reed Marnie's mantle as the biggest pest in the NRL might be under threat. Who's going to take that off him?
Yeah, that's right. Well, anyone who saw Thursday night and the way Cam Munster just got in the faces of the Penrith players and caused all sorts of anxiety amongst them. He and Liam Martin had a running battle all night. And in the end, the referee, I think it was Adam G, just got sick of it. And he penalised Munster in the final minute. And I forget the exact words he used, but it was something like poor discipline. Was a very strange reason to give a penalty. I think, as I said, he just got sick of Munster's carrying on, but he certainly got under the skin of the Penrith players, and it was obviously premeditated. Having said that, he also set up 3 tries and was man of the match. So he really did a job on the Panthers, and he's got that in him, Cam, doesn't he? So Reed Marnie, look out. He's after your title.
And Reece Walsh, everyone's talking about Reece Walsh, one of the biggest stars in our sport, but he's not going so well on the field at the moment, Tony. I had to listen to a lot of the full-time interviews on Friday night on the radio, and a lot of the other Broncos players spoke about him and tried to sort of be encouraging and say maybe he just needs to, rebuild his game from his defence or whatever. But it was an open topic of conversation even amongst his teammates on the radio. What do you think about how Reece Walsh is going?
Yeah, look, Steve, I think he's one of my favourite players in the NRL. Him and Kalen Ponga are just two special fullbacks who can do things that no one else can do. But whereas Ponga's been setting the world on fire, Reece Walsh has started the year poorly, and people are putting it down to that over the Cowboys. And in a winning team, he made 5 errors, gave away 2 penalties, and was placed on report, as well as putting a kick out on the full. In fairness, he did a couple of good things. He kicked a 40-20 that led to a try. He came up with a try assist. But the negatives far outweighed the positives. And I agree with his teammates. I think he's really got problems with his confidence at the moment, and he needs to go back and have a good look at his game, simplify things, just work on the little things rather than try coming up with a big play all the time, which he seemed to do the other night against the Cowboys, and it almost cost his team. So I'm sure Michael Maguire, he's a good coach, smart operator. He'll be talking to Reece Walsh this week.
By the way, viewers, I'm in the kitchen this week because I busted the blind in the lounge room watching the footy. I wound it down and then I couldn't wind it back up again. You imagine the trouble I got in from my partner for doing that. So I've had to move the computer into the kitchen. You talked about good fullbacks and stuff. So Will Kennedy, you've got an item about him and about, in any other era he'd be a rep player. That's a Sharks player.
Yeah, that's right. And the sort of theme of it is that the Sharks feel they perhaps need a more high profile fullback to take them to the title. Fullback's sort of the new super position in the game, isn't it? And Will Kennedy's a good player. He was man of the match the other day against Souths, but I'd have to put him behind Kalen Ponga, James Tedesco, Reece Walsh, Jareem Buller, Charles Nicole Klokstad, Dylan Walsh, Ryan Pappenhausen, and probably a few more as well. So he probably find himself at about 10 or 11 out of the 17 NRL fullbacks. So it's an interesting situation the Sharks have got. Do they stick with Will Kennedy or do they go for a high-profile fullback? Because they've got just about every other position on the field pretty well covered. And if he is moved on, or if they do sign a big name, he could feel a little bit hard done by. But at the same time, I can understand the Sharks' thinking.
Now, your last 2 items will round it up together. One is you just had a bit of an analysis on the Bulldogs win. It wasn't a big win at the weekend, but you say that there's reasons it would have pleased Cameron Ciraldo more than a big win. And also just a point about Benji Marshall's use of his hookers at West Tigers, that it evokes memories of something that happened at another club recently.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the Bulldogs, they're off to their best start in 11 years. It's the first time they've won their first 3 games for over a decade. And it wasn't pretty. It was a tough struggle. But look, Parramatta were at home. Parramatta were desperate. And Matt Burton and Viliami Kikau were missing. So they were always going to put up a good fight. And a 16-8 win for the Bulldogs, even if it is against a team that a lot will take the wooden spoon, I think it was pretty satisfying for the coach and the staff. Now, with the hookers, the Tigers and the way they use Api Coruscant and Talon De Silva, who's a really good young player, reminds me of the way the Storm a few years back were using Brandon Smith when he was playing good footy before he went to the Roosters, and Harry Grant. They'd have Brandon Smith, the more experienced player, on early, and then they'd bring Harry Grant on, who could razzle-dazzle from dummy half as the defence began to tire. And that's what the Tigers did last weekend, their win up at the Dolphins. And both hookers scored tries, highly unusual. Both significantly with the last tries in the first and second half. So it shows once fatigue set in, these 2 very talented number 9s were able to weave their magic. And don't be surprised if this Tigers team makes a run for the 8, Steve. They're currently sitting in 4th position. This might shock a lot of people, but a lot of talent in that team. Jareem Buller is just a sensational fullback, as I mentioned earlier. They've made some great signings. Up front, the big fella from the Roosters is making such a difference, whose name you'll tell me.
Terrell May.
Terrell May, yes. Sorry.
He was over here last year. He was over here last year with Samoa. I pestered him for a month trying to get a comment and he wouldn't talk, so I remember who he is.
Fair enough. Well, he's been one of the buys of the year, and people keep saying when they watched the Roosters, who were pretty ordinary last weekend. Why did they let him go? And maybe the story will come out one day. But the story that he's just not a good fit just doesn't seem to wash. I mean, when a guy is that good, and the Roosters were in so much trouble as far as their salary cap, it just seems a strange decision, and it's certainly coming back to bite him, because he was probably man of the match to Terrell May, and the Roosters are now 1 from 3, and we'll probably miss the 8, an early call, but it's something I said before a ball was kicked, and plenty of other people think so as well.
Now, let that be a lesson to you viewers. If you tune out while Tony's talking, he might jump out of your computer and ask you a question to make sure you're listening. So it could happen to you next week. We're going to end of episode plug. Tony's Vegas shirts. If you missed out, you want a souvenir of your trip to Las Vegas, or you want to pretend you went when you actually didn't go. Much cheaper to just buy a T-shirt than actually spend $10,000 getting there, putting yourself up in a hotel. So if you're going to Magic Weekend, we'll organise to bring you a T-shirt. Tony will get them up to our mate Guy, and he'll take them. To Brisbane with him. And anything else from this website, which is Harold Horder with an a.com.au. We'll bring it to Vegas, not Vegas, Bris Vegas. We'll bring it to Bris Vegas. We'll bring it to Bris Vegas and deliver it to you, find you in the pub or wherever you are. Here's the email address to make requests. It's sales@wlfmerchandise.com. And as I said, Tony will get some tea. If he's not going to Magic himself, I don't know. Have you got plans to go, Tony? You don't know? Or
I'm thinking about it. I'm still jet lagged from Vegas. So,
the other Vegas.
We'll
the other Vegas. So maybe Tony will deliver you a T-shirt himself, or maybe we'll get our mate Guy Wilson from Adelaide to bring it to you. But so remember that email address and remember that web address. And Tony will talk to you again midweek scoops.
Sounds good, Steve.